Welcome, Campo and Joe on the air. If you're checking us out on Facebook Live, totally appreciate it. Wherever you might find us on the 1010XL social channels, or listen in. Joe C., XL Primetime, noon to 3 weekdays. Coach Campo, our head coach, as he joins us now. I'm going to call him, I might start calling you Duval Dave, because you're entrenched in the city of Jacksonville now. You're more Jaguar than anything else, but you do have some great Super Bowl memories from your times with the Cowboys.
I do. Obviously it's was a great thing for my family, for me, fantastic. And by the way, I am using we and are with the Jaguars.
Yeah, you are.
So I am entrenched. You're right.
Well, that's good. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to do some Super Bowl talk this week. So we figured, Campo and Joe, we're diving in on the free agency, and we'll try and drill down on it as much as we can. Next week, we thought this week would be good to talk Super Bowl. Your Jaguars are only a couple of weekends removed from the season coming to a close, but now we got to look at the Chiefs, a 1.5-point underdog to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I thought, Coach, you might be able to give us some old stories from your Super Bowl days and then look at this game, and then we'll sneak a little free agency in at the end.
Well, obviously the first Super Bowl was the one that was most impactful back in '92. We weren't expected to get there necessarily, and we'd gone from 1-15 to a Super Bowl in 4 years. You don't know what the magnitude. The first week you're staying at home, you're working just like it's a normal week, and you get the majority of the game plan in, and you don't really know what to expect. And we got out there, and we were in a hotel right in Santa Monica, right on the pier, right next to the pier. And it was the media attention that probably caught me more than anything else right away. It was just such a big deal. And even though the Cowboys, we traveled during the season, there'd be 200 people in the lobby.
Oh, yeah. They love
come in.
Yeah, they love their Cowboys. Yeah.
It was a big deal. But getting out there, the number of people that were out there that were hanging around the hotel and, doing those kind of things, that's the first thing that struck me. And the day before the game, they have a media day on the field itself.
Right.
So when you're having your walkthrough, and if you know anything about California for the Rose Bowl, where the game was, it's in a valley and there's mountains around it. And when you come into the stadium, you go through a residential area, and then all of a sudden there's the stadium down in the valley as you start down there.
Right.
And we got to the end of that, and that was the first time that it hit me that there were going to be 90 million people watching the game, and it was going to be a big deal, because when we got down to the edge and I looked down at the stadium, there were like 5 or 6 blimps flying around the stadium. And we get down to it, and there were 250,000 people at whatever they call the day before, the NFL.
Yeah, the experience. NFL experience, yeah.
And half of them had Cowboy stuff on, and half of them had Buffalo Bills stuff. And it was just so much color and everything. And we're driving in on a bus. We get out of the bus and walk into the stadium, and there were 1,000 media guys standing there in the stadium when we're getting ready for our walkthrough.
Yeah.
So it really pointed out how big the game was. And then the next thing that hit me was in the ball game, and we were standing there, and Garth Brooks and Marley Manton were doing the national anthem.
Right.
And at the end of the national anthem, the Jets hit. And when the Jets hit, it was everybody looked up, and I'm telling you that 80% had tears in their eyes, including me. Yeah. And you felt like you could just jump up and grab the Jets. That's how exciting it was.
Because the Rose Bowl goes down in, and so that's why they were as close as they were.
They were right on top of us almost.
And folks that are watching, we do Campo and Joe, we mainly talk Jaguar football. Some of them may not even realize, this man was a defensive coach and a defensive coordinator in 3 Super Bowl wins. You've got 3 Lombardis sitting in your man cave, 3 Super Bowl rings. And so, this is a shot at Dallas right now. They haven't won anything since, okay? They haven't won anything since. As long as the Jaguars have been around, that was the last Super Bowl that the Dallas Cowboys won.
1995, Super Bowl 30. Yeah.
But there's just so many good memories. So the game itself, just how enormous is it? Everyone goes, wait a minute, it's just another game. It's not another game.
No, I mean, obviously, that's it. I mean, I always have, when I talk to people, talk to groups or whatever, one of the things that I really feel strongly about is that there are only so many champions in this world. And there's a lot of different ways you can be a champion, whether it's a husband, a champion, husband or wife, a champion teacher, a champion in any number of businesses. And the feeling that I had in the game was really no different than the feeling that a little league person or a state champion high school team would have. And I won a state championship as a high school coach. The feeling in that game was the same. It's just that there were a heck of a lot more people watching it. And that actually put a little bit more of a cloud or a pressure on you because of you knew the number of people that were counting on that ball game, you winning.
Yeah, I believe it. I really do. And you can come up, like you said, with certain scenarios that anybody has been in. If they're an athlete of any kind or a coach of any kind, you feel that whatever level it's on. Now, when we think about this game in particular, and I asked you this on XL Primetime, so I'll ask with our Campo and Joe, Pat Mahomes has got to be feeling just a little bit of pressure. Now, this is his third Super Bowl in 4 years. This cat has been amazing since Andy Reid says, okay, you're going to start the last game of whatever it was, 2019, and the rest has taken off like a rocket ship since then. They lose in the AFC Championship game the next year to Tom Brady. Tom Brady and the Patriots go to the Super Bowl. They win, and then lo and behold, he goes to Tampa, and he takes that team to the Super Bowl, and Pat Mahomes loses to him. So he's now 1-1 in Super Bowls. How much different will it be if he's 2-1 in the Super Bowls or 1-2?
Well, I think, first of all, his legacy is going to be how many Super Bowls he can win. And if he wants to be the best ever, he's got a long way to go with Tom Brady sitting out there, And I think, just the idea that, the brand gets bigger and bigger every time you're successful.
Yeah.
And so for him, I think looking to the future and everything, this is a big ball game for him. But, having been in some, it's almost more about the team than it is you.
Right.
Really, there's a camaraderie within the team. When we have reunions now, the Super Bowl teams or even the national championship team at the University of Miami, there's a feeling there that when you win one of those, you're in history. You're there forever, and each guy has their own camaraderie with that, and I think that's almost more important than the legacy of I won 5 Super Bowls or 3 or 7 or whatever it is.
And it's kind of like what we talked about with Tony Baselli. You've been up in Canton when you've seen players, coaches that you coach with, like Jimmy Johnson, that went into the Hall. That is a rare fraternity. That's a group of people that have something that they'll always be linked together as a group. That's special.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And, I think Pat Mahomes, is going to feel pressure, but I think both quarterbacks are going to feel a little bit of pressure because it's a big ball game.
Well, I'm going to come at it. This may be just as motto, master of the obvious, I call it, but I'm just looking at it. I like catching points. You know that, Coach.
Yes.
If you're looking at the gambling side of this, they're catching 1.5 points. I think it might even move a little bit more because I can just see some of that Philly money heading to Vegas and maybe moving it up a little bit. Everybody loves what the defense in Philadelphia has done. Hard to argue. Almost 80 sacks if you include the regular season and then a couple of playoff games. But Pat Mahomes, the last time he was in the Super Bowl, he got killed by that Tampa front. They got after him. I just feel like he's a smarter player. He's taking shorter check down throws. Andy Reid is an experienced coach. I'm leaning experience versus inexperience.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that on the primetime show about the fact that, the experience of Andy Reid and the combination of Andy and Pat Mahomes, that is a little bit of an advantage. And to be honest with you, even though I'm leaning towards Philadelphia because of the defense, their offensive line is better right now than than it was, I believe.
Yeah.
So, that negates some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, when you look at the teams that have won over the years, the team with the best defense has won the big games.
No question.
And,
no question.
I experienced it, back when we were in the Super Bowls. We didn't have that much recognition on defense, but we would not, because we had the triplets.
Mm-hmm.
And the people want to see scoring. They want to see the excitement of the offensive firepower.
Right.
But our team would not have won those Super Bowls had it not been for the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
You look at the first Super Bowl, 8 fumbles caused in the game against the Buffalo Bills.
8. Did you guys hear that? 8. And I'm looking at the score. It was 52-17. You guys smoked them.
And it really would have been more if Leon Lett didn't decide to showboat on one of those fumbles he picked up and was running all the way.
Yeah, and then Steve Tasker came and popped the ball out.
Knocked it out of his hand. It was Beebe.
Was it Don Beebe? It was Don Beebe.
Yeah. And so to me, the defense is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Philadelphia is a tough, physical, aggressive football team. And I think defensively is going to make the difference in the game, even though I'm actually rooting for – I hate the Eagles.
Yeah.
But I'm actually rooting for Kansas City, but I'm leaning towards Philadelphia.
And we talked about this on our podcast before. The Chiefs are second in sacks. They're a little bit of a distant second, but they're second in sacks, and they can provide some pressure. I think Lane Johnson is dealing with I think it's an adductor. Anyway, it's a torn muscle in the core area, which is pretty significant. They had another offensive lineman go down. So I actually think the pass rush, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, that bunch can do some things. But real quick, before we get back to the game, all right, one memory, Cowboys 52, Buffalo Bills 17. What's the number one memory in the game that pops for you?
They were ahead of us in the first. I think the score was 14-7.
Okay.
They were ahead, and they're driving, and they're down on about the 4 or 5 yard line going in.
Right.
And I'm standing next to Ray Horton, who was one of our safeties. He was our nickel safety.
Right.
And he ended up being a coach, is still a coach now. He's been in the NFL, for a number of years. Smart guy.
Yeah.
So we're standing there, and it's 4th down on the 1 yard line. And we're loaded up against the run. And he's looking at the sideline, and he sees 2 guys talking, and he reads the lips of the whoever's talking over there. And he turns to me and he said, "Coach, they're going to throw it." And so I said, "Dave, they're going to throw it." And he said, "Nickel."
Wow.
And he ran the nickel on the field, and they threw it, and Thomas Everett intercepted the ball in the end zone.
That's awesome.
And that was the start of the deluge for the rest of the ball game.
And then it went 52-17, down by a touch, and you ended up winning 52-17. All right, the next one, Dallas Cowboys over the Bills 30-13. What's the first thing that jumps in your head there?
The first thing that jumps in my head there was that O.J. Simpson, who I had never met, was one of the commentators in that game with Atlanta.
1994. He was
and a
lot changed for OJ after that.
And I met him at halftime. I mean, before the ball game.
Wow.
And we had a conversation. I had never met him before. Little did I know that 4 months later in June, he'd be accused of murder. His wife.
That's incredible.
That's the first thing that sticks out. But the other thing that sticks out is we were behind in that game, 14-7 at the half. No panic. Jimmy said, "Look, they're going to turn the ball over, and we're going to win this football game. We just have to take care of our own business, and we're going to run the football. So get ready for it."
Yeah.
We come out. Thurman Thomas fumbles. James Washington, our safety, picks it up, runs it in for a touchdown, 14-14. James Washington intercepts Kelly twice in the second half. Emmett, in one drive, 8 carries in a row for something like 65 yards at a touchdown.
Insane.
game's over.
It really, I love hearing it because the belief was there, and then the results came after that. Last one for you because they won 3 Super Bowls over 4 years. You were the defensive coordinator. Dallas Cowboys 27, Pittsburgh Steelers 17, 1996.
A lot closer than the score indicates.
Mm-hmm.
We had a rough year. We had some internal things that weren't really going well. We had to win the last couple ball games, one of which that Kevin Williams,
Mm-hmm.
our little receiver from Miami, who I recruited to Miami,
Right.
caught a 4th down pass against the Giants, diving out of bounds. And we ended up kicking a field goal to win it.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up home field advantage getting to the ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And in the game, we were a 4-3 defense, and the big defenses in the league that year with some of the 3-4s that were doing a lot of zone blitzes, which were absolutely new.
Mm-hmm.
Fritz Shermer at Green Bay and
Dick LeBeau at Pittsburgh.
Dick LeBeau at Pittsburgh. So I started studying what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we, at the end of the year, put those things together into what we could do with the 4-3. And
Mm-hmm.
we hadn't run them. And we got into the playoffs. We ran a couple. But in the Super Bowl, we ran, I think, about 6 of them. And 2 of them, Larry Brown intercepted the ball with the offense thinking it was a man coverage and it was a zone, and ran them both back. And we ended up, Emmett putting them in the end zone, and we ended up winning at the end. But they were actually driving, and we were tuckered out because we just had a long drive against us, and we turned the ball over, and they were driving again.
Mm-hmm.
And the interception turned the game around.
It's beautiful. It really is. And I love when Leon on XL Primetime and Coach, they trade bars back and forth. Steelers, he was on one side, Coach was on the other side. It really is good stuff. All right, so let's get back to this game real quick, and then we'll sneak in a little free agent talk at the end, because there are a number of free agents that are on Philadelphia's team. They're really going to have some decisions to make after this offseason, depending on how it goes in this game, whether they want to go back there, whether there's enough money to get them back there, all that kind of stuff. But let's go to the Jalen Hurts part of this. We know what Pat Mahomes is capable of. He's proven it to us over and over and over. Jalen Hurts was on his way to an MVP before he got hurt.
Right.
Okay, so I don't even know if we can even answer whether the shoulder is going to be any good or not. But how good can Jalen Hurts be in this game, and can he win this Super Bowl? How?
Well, first of all, I really think he's going to be okay. I mean, to be honest with you, the last ball game, I thought he threw the ball
really good.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the wild card part of that whole thing is the X factor is the fact that he can run the football.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean run the football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about just scrambling,
Right.
I mean, the guy had 700 and something yards rushing during the season. And so, to me, he's capable of winning the Super Bowl because I think he's got some guys around him. He's got 2 receivers, both over 1,000 yards, Devonta Smith and AJ
Mm-hmm.
Brown. And the tight end Goddard, people, look at Kelsey. Goddard had 700 yards passing, receiving.
Yeah.
So, they've got quality guys. It's not like but they're a run first to set up the pass.
And they've got Miles Sanders and Gainwell back there.
Absolutely. And Scott.
Scott, Boston Scott too.
They've got 3 running backs that are the different. When you look at the 2 teams, Kansas City has over 3,000 yards
Mm-hmm.
passing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles
Mm-hmm.
have almost the same number with a combination.
Right.
So, they're probably not as sexy,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very good offensively.
Yeah. And Nick Sirianni versus Andy Reid. This is another kind of really cool dynamic. Talking about a guy he is 100% in the Hall of Fame, and Andy Reid. I believe that. And you got this other guy that you just would consider him an upstart, a guy that you don't know a whole lot about. First year head coach last year, he makes it to the playoffs. They get embarrassed. They get knocked out. He's got him back, and he's got him in the bowl this year. Are we talking about maybe a Sean McVay type of entrance into the league if he can do it?
I mean, I think he was a little bit undervalued when he took the job.
Yeah.
A lot of people were surprised he got it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's done a great job with molding that team.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously they've done a good job of drafting and putting the team together. But, you know, he's doing some really good things.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be experience against a young guy. And, you know, he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulders because Andy fired him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that. He
Oh,
did.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
When he got the job in Kansas City, he was already on the staff, and he let him go because he had a guy that was his guy that he
that was
wanted in
either
there.
Kafka or one of those guys that he was bringing in.
Well, no, it was actually the assistant head coach that actually took his position. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a guy that was with Andy for a long period of time. He wanted him on the staff, and he was told at that time that Sirianni was an up-and-coming guy. And, you know, so there's a little bit, you could say whatever you want. There's a little bit of chip on there, you know, that I'd like to beat my mentor. But they're all basically from the same tree because Sirianni was on the staff with Doug Peterson. And so they're all intertwined.
And then when he got the job in Philly, he was under Frank Reich in Indianapolis. And they plucked him from there. But I do love it because you're right. The coaches they have long memories. They don't forget certain things like that. And he looks like he's wired for Philadelphia. Just a little angry, a little feisty, a little fiery.
It's a combination of things there. No question. It's going to be, I think the thing that I like about Andy Reid that sticks out to me is the fact that he has a knack of making critical calls when it's needed. And some of that is that the quarterback can execute about anything that he wants him to be executing. But you look at the fourth down percentages, they're 75% on fourth down.
That's key.
And that's big, because those are critical calls when those calls are made.
And the other thing I was going to say is that if you want to take a look at Doug Peterson and the level, positive attitude that he has and kind of injects into his team, that's Andy Reid too.
Yeah, everybody loves Andy Reid. I mean, anybody that's played for him, nobody really has anything bad to say about Andy. And I know Andy pretty well. We're in the same church, and I've been to a few of his firesides that he's had with when I was in Kansas, and he was at Kansas City. The guy is well loved by a lot of people.
That's awesome. All right, but a slice of pizza. You and Andy Reid are splitting it. Is he getting 5 slices and you're getting 3?
No, he's getting a lot more than that. Listen, when they won their last game, I texted him. I said, Andy, congratulations. I know you're excited about the game, but my real question is, did you get your cheeseburger? And he sent back, he said, yeah, the game was great. And the cheeseburger was great.
I love that. All right, so let's pair up. We just brought up Doug Peterson. I want to read this Peyton Manning quote about Trevor Lawrence, and then we'll just maybe throw a little free agent thought on him at the end. You got to make a pick too, Coach, by the way, with the Super Bowl before we're done. All right, but Peyton Manning, this is what he said about Trevor. The sky is the limit with this guy. I like the way he carries himself. They had great success this year and kind of sent a message to the rest of the AFC that Jacksonville's here. I expect great things out of him in the next years. Hard to argue with that.
Absolutely. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
This guy's special. No doubt.
And as bad as the Pro Bowl product was, it's great for Trevor to be around a guy like that.
That was a very interesting because I really didn't think of it that way, but I was just reading an article this morning where I'm definitely getting old. I can't remember who said it, but it was one of the pro guys that said, even though it was flag football and it was Ray Lewis.
Okay.
Ray Lewis made the comment that when he was in the Pro Bowl, a lot of things that he learned was being around guys. All of them are talented.
That's a good point.
But he learned that how much those guys study. And that's one thing that Trevor, if he's going to be great,
right?
It's
invaluable.
It's invaluable. And he also made the comment that flag football teaches defensive guys because to grab the flag, you got to come under control, the balance, and so there's something that can be gained anytime you're around really good players that you can learn.
And from everything you gather, he was in the middle of a lot of opportunities, not just playing the game, but hanging out, developing relationships, picking somebody's brain, learning a little bit about it, measuring his game against somebody else's. I think that's all huge.
No question. And you learn something. Champions, I like to be around champions because there's an aura about them.
Right. That's why we're hanging out with Marsh. I mean, honestly,
when I'm with our chief, our main guy running the show here, I learn something every day.
Yeah, he knows.
It's tough to argue with the facts.
All right, let's get to the game. Who do you like in this game? Because I'm leaning Kansas City. I'm leaning experience. I'm leaning what Mahomes has done better at this year than he has done before. He is not necessarily taking less chances, but he is hitting more targets and making more plays.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
I think Philadelphia is going to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be if their receivers and Mahomes are close to 100%.
Right.
It's going to be a tight ball game right to the end. And I can see Philadelphia. I can see why it's a 1.5 point spread. I like Philadelphia because of the defense. I think they're going to win. I'm going to say 27-24, Philadelphia.
And the other thing, Coach, there's definitely a big question mark as far as the injuries are concerned. They were really hit hard. Kansas City was with the injuries, particularly at the wide receiver spot.
And that's why I'm leaning the other way.
Yeah.
And I think the toughness and the physicalness and all that is going to favor Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no weather concerns. It's just go play the game, and I like Philadelphia.
All right, so next week, I don't know if there'll be a theme, but we will do our Campo and Joe podcast on Valentine's Day. So, big hearts to the Jaguar fans and all that. But the next day, Calvin Ridley likely to be reinstated to the Jacksonville to the Jaguars, reinstated into the league, and then officially can come join the Jaguars. How exciting will that be for Doug Peterson and company?
Well, I think that's one of the keys.
That's like getting the best free agent.
Absolutely.
Right?
No question about it. That's why they gambled on him and went after him before anybody else could get involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question that if he's the same as when he left or better, he's what you would call in our terms, a true number one.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can take the top off of the defense. And, you talk about that, talking about the X factor. Right. He could be the X factor in this team really taking off a year from now.
All right, I love it. All right, so we won't know next week if it's official, but we expect that it will, and then we'll start to look at the free agents, react to the Super Bowl. Good stuff, Coach. Enjoy it, as always. Dave Campo, Joe C., Campo and Joe, thanks for tuning in.